Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the second channel, and today I wanted to talk a little bit about how drafting, specifically Magic the Gathering, has reinvigorated my enjoyment of trading card games of late. I identify as a bit of a fighting game player, and I think most people would see me that way, seeing as that's the bulk of the content that I've produced on the main channel. But the truth is that I started playing fighting games when I was about 15 years old, and I was pretty engaged in my local community for that. But I've been playing trading card games basically since the moment I gained consciousness. I can't remember a time when I was not engaged in trading card games in some way. I guess technically I can. I took a bit of a hiatus for like 3 or 4 years around the middle school, early high school time, but for most of my life I have been playing trading card games. In order, I have played Yu-Gi-Oh!, Duel Masters, Pokemon, Magic the Gathering, Cardfight Vanguard, Wheatcross, Digimon, Flesh and Blood, One Piece, Battle Spirit Saga, Dragon Ball, Masters, and Fusion World, as well as most recently Grand Archive. And Grand Archive is an excellent game that I want to talk about at some point. But this video isn't about Grand Archive. This video is about draft. So over the past couple of years, I've been sort of struggling financially, right? I just haven't had the money to be able to really participate in standard events the way that I want to. But to be honest, even when I play like the standard format of a couple of the more popular games around in my area, being like One Piece, Riftbound, Magic the Gathering. Oh yeah, I've played Riftbound too, the very recent, so I kind of forgot about it. But when I'm playing standard, I just haven't found myself particularly engaged lately. I haven't loved the direction that these formats have been taking for really any of the recent games. I have different like sort of gameplay gripes with each of the different games, although maybe they aren't like mechanical gameplay gripes so much as like the decisions that companies are making in terms of like balance and overall design for the sets, or like I don't know. There's just something about it that isn't really quite hitting for me recently, and I think part of it is being priced out of the hobby, and another part of it is just not enjoying the environment for whatever reason. When I'm playing in a standard environment, and particularly I'll talk about Magic the Gathering at the moment, when I hop on MTGA and I'm playing like best of one standards, usually by like turn 2 I can kind of glean what I'm playing against. By turn 3 I'm going to know whether they have what they need in hand to win the game outright, and whether I'm going to be able to do anything about it. And by turn 4 the game is kind of over. And I just don't find it particularly engaging. It feels like it leans way too heavily on deck construction, matchup, and like whether you drew what you needed to do about it in hand. And I do understand that best of one is like kind of that way. You just force a strategy and then you see if it works out. And in best of 3, you kind of have more wiggle room to like sideboard in and deal with the thing that you're playing against. So I do think I would probably enjoy the best of 3 standard environment so much, but the cost/time investment that it requires to play best of 3 on Arena is just way too high. And most people will tell you that if you wanted to collect the cards to be able to play a format like that, the number one recommendation is just to get really good at draft, because that's the way that you build collections on MTGA, or at least that's the advice that most people will give you. So I decided to invest a little bit of time into draft. I figure like even if I'm not able to participate in like best of 3 standard in the way that I might be interested in doing so, I can draft, and like maybe in a couple of years I'll have like an actual collection on MTGA to be able to actually play the game with, right? So I decided I was going to get into draft, but I'd kind of heard that the Spider-Man set was not received well at all for multiple different reasons, but one of them was that the drafting experience was just really poor. So I decided to sort of wait and see what the set after that was going to be like. And I heard that it was Avatar. So as a brief aside, I actually went and watched Avatar kind of for the first time. When I was younger, it was on Nickelodeon, and I always enjoyed it when it came on. But around that time, unless you like happened to catch a marathon while it was on, you weren't going to get to see like all 60 episodes like in a row in chronological order like that. You just kind of caught bits and pieces whenever you happened to see it on. So this was my first time like actually watching the entire show in chronological order, just sort of binging it over a couple of days, and it was excellent. I highly recommend it to anybody who hasn't done that. And if you're a fighting game player like me, we have the Avatar fighting game. That's enough talking about Avatar. Anyway, So me and my partner went out to play in a couple of pre-release events for the Avatar set. Me being a big fan of trading card games, them being a big fan of Avatar: The Last Airbender, and us kind of, being able to jam those two interests together was a lot of fun. And we actually ended up going out for multiple pre-release. One of them was just a traditional sealed event where we played best of threes as solo, and then another one was actually two-headed giant, which was even better. Being able to play with somebody who was like kind of new to card games and being able to spend more time with my partner, I think that was really rewarding. But I've come back home. I've played probably about 15 drafts of the new Avatar set, and I think draft has quickly risen to be my favorite way to play trading card games. So I have a buddy. My buddy was also somebody that I know from the fighting game community, good friend of mine. And I coerced him into playing trading card games with me when we were roommates a couple of years back. And he's been casually engaged with it ever since. When I talked to him about like his motivations for playing a game, he has described it as he sort of wants to sharpen the blade, forge the sword and sharpen the blade. What that means is he wants to come up with a deck or look for a deck that sort of speaks to him and is some sort of expression of who he is as a person and what he wants to do in the game in a sort of Johnny sort of way. And then he wants to jam that deck over and over and over, learn the different matchups, learn the different intricacies, tweak the numbers, tweak the ratios, and just get really, really good and really, really proficient at playing that deck. And I totally, totally respect that. The thing is that I think in my view, I was reflecting on this the other day, I think in my view, that mindset is best lends itself in an environment like fighting games, where ultimately the result of the game is almost entirely in your control. The thing about fighting games is that like there is like a degree of randomness in it, quote unquote, but like the randomness, it's not randomness. That's not the right way to say it. The thing about fighting is that every option has another option that can answer to it. And at any given time, you don't really know what option your opponent is going to go for. So it's not random because, you're not like rolling a dice, but it is a game of chance, and that like you're going to throw out rock, paper, or scissors, and then the opponent could throw out the thing that answers to that, right? But ultimately, like if you are far, far better than your opponent in a fighting game, you are going to win basically 100% of the time. Like there isn't like an outside factor that could influence the ability to win. And that's just not true of trading card games. No matter how sort of skill-based or skill-intensive you wanted the trading card game to be, the nature of building a deck where you're limited to a certain number of copies of any given card, and the fact that you're drawing from that deck at any given point in time, and you don't have control over what's in your starting hand or what you're drawing, or those sorts of things, provides an inherent aspect of literal randomness that can influence the match. And sometimes like a player that is not as good as you would be able to take a game off of you just because of that variation, right? And the thing that I kind of like about draft is that if we are playing a game where there is an inherent element of randomness, and part of the game is about reining in and controlling that randomness and doing the best that you can in any given situation, then I kind of want to play in a format that like leans into that in like the most extreme way. And I think that the drafting really does do that. Drafting rewards skills that I think are really, really fun to hone and engage in. It rewards a certain level of detachment. And what I mean by that is like if I go into a draft thinking like, oh, white green looks really good this set, I'm just going to draft every white and green card and then we'll make a deck out of it. Then like that'll work maybe like 20% of the time. But if the other people at the table end up doing the same thing, and there are like 2 to 3 other people that also are interested in those colors, then the pool that I can actually draft from is going to slowly dwindle. I just won't be able to make a good deck consistently if I try to play that sort of way. And so if you enter detached, like, okay, I'm not coming in with any kind of preconceived notion of what I'm going to play this draft. I'm just going to look at the cards. We're going to take the best cards in each of the packs and then see what direction that sort of leans us into, see what's open, look for what's available. You can more consistently create a deck that is good for the environment that you're playing in, right? I think that is a really satisfying thing to get good at. It also rewards like staying really engaged with the community and sort of the community sentiment. For example, there are tons of content creators that put out content about like, here are the best commons in the set, here are the best uncommons in the set, here are the rare bombs that you're really looking for. And that's all super, super helpful going into like some of your early drafts. But even beyond that, over the coming weeks, the format will change, not because like the devs are patching or errataing or messing with the format at all, but because as sentiment changes towards what is strong and what is weak in the format, it modifies like what people are drafting in their pods, and it also changes what kind of cards you're going to end up seeing later on in those drafts because of the sort of sentiment changing, right? So by being in tune with your community and like knowing what's good, you also sort of inadvertently know like what might be more open in a way. It kind of has like a self-balancing mechanism in a way, not in that like right now, as an example, white is kind of considered the best color in the avatar format. Like you could kind of play it with any other color and it would end up being really, really good. And black, and to a lesser degree red, are kind of disputed as like being some of the not as strong colors, although the sentiment towards both of those colors is changing as of late. And so like maybe a couple of days ago, when sentiment was sort of getting around that the black portion of the cards were not as strong, you would end up getting past like a lot of really strong black cards like later on into the draft, and black was just wide open to be able to play. So I ended up being able to play a lot of black decks in that time. And I personally don't do very well with that color, but I think I've watched other content creators that do make that color work, and I think that there's a lot of potential there. But beyond that, having the like smaller card pool of like I think there's like about 300 draftable cards in this set, if you're not counting the bonus sheet cards, somewhere around 300. Because the pool of cards is smaller, when you're playing in a match, you can kind of account for what you could reasonably see. Like, let's say it's my turn and my opponent is floating a white and a red mana. Okay, I know that like it could be Firebending Lesson. Does that 2 damage at instant speed, affect whether or not I want to attack right now? Like, what could that reasonably hit? He could play like I think it's like a Razor Gale thing, where if I declare an attack, then he can deal 4 damage to one of my attacking units. Do I want to like maybe not attack in fear that he might have that in hand, such that he basically just left the 2 floating for nothing? Maybe he's also got like a clue token off to the side. Oh, he's going to use the 2 mana anyway. There's like, by being engaged with the format and by knowing what the pool of cards is and what you could reasonably see, you end up being able to play around and sort of suss out situations. I think like in a way that feels more rewarding than like queuing into standard and seeing Badger Mole Cub come out on turn 2 and knowing what the other 56 cards in the list are, just by like knowing what the net deck is like, oh, I've seen this list, I know what every card in this deck is, I know what to play around, right? It's like that doesn't feel as engaging as like sort of feeling things out in a way. Maybe that's the whole thing, is just like the feeling things out that you have to do in draft is really, really rewarding. And the other thing is that the game just doesn't end on turn 4. Like most of my draft games, even in the case where like somebody is playing like an aggro or an aggressive play style, it might go to like turn 5 or 6, and most of my games are going to like 10 plus, right? They're pretty mid-rangey, sometimes control-y, waiting to see like a couple of good bombs. I think that's like a format-specific thing. I have heard other content creators say that this set is particularly bomb-heavy. But yeah, the games just feel much more engaging, because rather than being like, oh, there's a big threat on board, can I answer it? Nope, scoop. It's like, okay, this person is in these colors. I know generally what the synergies between these colors are. These are the cards I could reasonably expect to see here, but there might be a couple of surprises, and we'll just like, we have to stay on our toes. We have to play proactively. We have to stay on our toes and just sort of look out for stuff. I think that is incredibly rewarding to play. And the format, I think I alluded to this, but like, being in not a great financial position right now, the format is just cheap. Like I could kind of justify playing like standard One Piece back when I was making a decent amount of money, but I'm making literally so much less money right now that being able to say like, hey, Friday I'll go out, I'll spend like $20 on a draft, and then I get to come back with cards. Like, it's not like I paid an entry fee and then I played and then I came back empty-handed. No, I'm coming back bare minimum with the 45 cards I drafted, maybe with a couple of more packs for doing well. And if you're playing on Arena, if you have like a pretty good draft, it literally refunds itself, where you just get to do another draft. Like, you get like 3 to 5 booster packs, 3 to 6 depending on like which draft you're doing and how well you're doing, and it refunds it. So it's very, very rewarding when you do well. Punishing when you don't do well, but very rewarding when you do well. And my renewed love of drafting has also pushed me to sort of look into and start exploring the idea of a cube. Right now, I think the things that I'm most interested in building in terms of a cube are things that let me revisit sets that I really wished I could have played in but didn't really get the opportunity to. So, for example, I want to build a Final Fantasy set cube because that happened, earlier in the year, and I really wanted to be playing during that time, but my life was just too unstable to really be able to get out and enjoy that set in the way that I wanted to. And I heard that it was an excellent draft format, so I'm looking forward to when it comes back around in rotation on MTGA to play that quite a bit. But really interested in getting a set cube for that. I want to get a set cube for Bloomburrow because I think Bloomburrow is a set that my partner would really enjoy, particularly aesthetically. But I also think, having seen it, I played a little bit during that time. I think the idea that like, oh, if you're in red-black, you're just looking for the lizards. Like, the lizards will all have, a synergy with one another. If you're in green-blue, you're looking for the frogs. The frogs will have synergy with one another. I think that's like relatively straightforward and easy for a player that is new to drafting and new to this kind of environment. And so I think the aesthetics as well as the ease of approaching that set, I think would be really, really good for my partner. So that's a set that I'm looking at building as well. I'm also humoring the idea of creating my own like custom designed Magic set that is a cube. I have, at this point, designed several collectible card games. I've gotten like 4 prototypes that I've, developed and gotten to a point of playtesting over the table. None of them have gotten to a point where I've like published them as actual, like full-on games that people can enjoy, but I want to do that at some point. And one sort of avenue I'm thinking about is, if I wanted to make my own custom set and make it like a Magic Cube that people could draft, that sort of tests my game design knowledge by constraining me to the pre-existing rules that Magic the Gathering has, right? I think creativity is often born of limitation, so I think that would be like a productive exercise. And I'm kind of thinking about like IPs that I might be interested in universes beyonding. Considered making a series called Part of the Problem, where I just design more universes beyond sets. Let me know if that sounds interesting or if you want to shoot me with a gun. I'm also trying to coordinate a group of friends who want to regularly draft, like let's say once a week, on Draftmancer. And there's a website called tcg-arena.fr that a lot of the Riftbound people are using for playing Riftbound. I started using it for playing Magic the Gathering with my friends online because it is a manual sim where you kind of have to do everything by yourself, but the it's way more slick and streamlined than like trying to play on Tabletop Simulator. And I personally can never get like X-Mage or what's the other one, Cockatrice. I couldn't get these things to install properly or like feel well. I've tried Cockatrice a really long time ago and I just didn't enjoy it. So I don't know. That website I think is excellent. But my idea is, if I could get like a coordinated group of people who want to get together, once a week. And my thought is potentially doing like a backwards in history sort of thing, where like right now we would start by drafting Avatar, and then next week we would skip Spider-Man, do like Edge of Eternities, and then just move backwards through Magic history so that we could experience all of the different limited environments, taking a brief detour whenever, a new set comes out to try that out as well. I think that would be particularly fun and interesting, and it would be a good way for somebody like me who like identifies as a trading card game player but doesn't know enough about like Magic the Gathering specifically to up my Magic the Gathering knowledge. Because another part of the reason why I think designing my own custom cards for a cube is so appealing to me is that I just don't have this sort of encyclopedic knowledge of every Magic card that was printed that some people do. I think if I had like a really wide knowledge of Magic, then building my own cube would be interesting, because I could think of, oh, that one guy from Return to Ravnica would go perfect here, right? But I literally just don't have the ability to do that, and I don't know how to search for cards based off of like effects that they do or like synergies that they have. Maybe like Moxfield has a way to do that. You guys let me know. But in general, I still think like designing my own set would be more rewarding for me in the long run. Another thing, bouncing back to like things that make drafts so interesting, I'm a very sporadic person. Like even on my main channel, I would constantly bounce around between like different things just to like keep myself stimulated. I'm like autistic and ADHD, right? So I constantly need to hyperfixate over a new thing. I think the idea that like a new set is going to come out and it's not like, oh, there's 5 to 10 new cards that are relevant in standard, but it's like, no, all 300 cards in this set are the new environment. The entire format is shifting because there's a new environment that you're playing in, and you're not excited over the couple of mythics that are in it because they're going to be really good in a standard environment. You're actually getting excited over the new commons and uncommons because those are the cards that you're going to be seeing every single draft. That sort of like flips the enjoyment of the trading card game on its head in a way, and I think that is really fun. I'm spending way more time listening to people talking about drafting, listening to people talking about cube design, thinking about limited, thinking about fun new ways to draft. The Winston draft, grid drafting. There's like a Minneapolis draft, I think is what it's called. There's just a lot of different things that I am looking to and exploring and thinking about. So yeah, I really love drafting. I hope that you guys enjoy some of the draft content that I will be putting on this channel at some point. I'm not a professional drafter. I'm not Numo the Nummy. I am a card game enjoyer that is really into draft right now, and I think we'll have a lot of fun. So consider subscribing, consider being here, and yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.